Greetings, math team. I integrated MyMathLab with Blackboard a couple of times in the spring semester, and I wanted to share with you the easiest way to integrate MyMathLab and sync the gradebook. So if we're going to have the MyMathLab integrated, then students will not need a course ID. So before we start the process, let's clean up the information in Blackboard. And so the first one is the announcement. And here's what my announcement looks like now. So the little paragraph about MyMathLab states that they're now currently enrolled in MyMathLab through Blackboard. Just select MyMathLab from the Blackboard navigation menu. So we need to revise that. And then in Start Here is another little tidbit about MyMathLab, and we want to make sure that it does not reference a course ID and that it references they're automatically being enrolled. Feel free to copy those two statements if you'd like, but they need to be revised. So once we have the student information correct, we can start the integration process. That process starts at the top left-hand corner. We need to create an item for our Blackboard menu, and we want to create a tool link. And I'm just going to call it Pearson Tools. And if you go to the drop-down menu, we're going to go find Pearson, MyLab, and Mastery Tools. I leave this available to students. You can do that or not do that. It's up to you. We're going to create a different link for students to use most often. And then we push Submit. You can place that item where you want on the Blackboard menu. I put it at the bottom of the student resources. It is a resource, but it's not going to be the primary one that they use. When we click on the Pearson Tools, we see a few things here. The one we need to worry about right now and use right now is this Select a MyLab and Mastery product to use with this course. If you create another course because we need a copy from the master, you have to be released from the master in order for the gradebook sync to work. I just taught a 1332 class that I had synced, and so I'm just going to copy that course, and then I don't have to be released. And so, you know, we really want to copy the master courses, but then we have to be released by the SME. If you previously taught it very recently, then go ahead and copy that course. That's just up to you. At this point, you know what you're doing, right? We are in MyMathLab. We're creating our course. We need to give it the name we want and all of that good stuff. And so I will give you a few minutes to do that. Once you're finished with that process, we have to wait for our MyMathLab course to be ready before we can continue. So pause, come back later, and we'll pick up where we left off. Okay, I assume at this point that your MyMathLab course is ready. If that's the case, when you click on the Pearson Tools in your Blackboard menu, we're going to see more than we just saw. Okay, I have a lot more items, especially down on these support tools. Okay, so we're going to create the link now that students will use most often. And we do that by going back to the top left corner again, but we're going to create content area this time. Let's just call it MyMathLab. As you know, it's going to appear at the bottom, and I'm going to move it on up. This is the one students are going to use most often, so I'm going to move it up right under the lessons. And I meant to make it available. Okay, so when we click on that link now, it's empty, but if we go to Tools and go down to Pearson, MyLab, and Mastery Content, we can put the items we want here. I want students to be able to go to their MyMathLab course home. I want them to be able to easily access the multimedia library and the ebook. They can access all of these items from the course homepage, so that's really all we have to have in this section, but I like to make the other resources easily available for them. And we push submit. And now here's the page that students will use most often. They are going to go to their course home. They could use the multimedia library here or the ebook. We are going to click on MyLab and Mastery Course Home just as a student would. Go to Course Tools and the Gradebook. At this point, our courses are synced. MyMathLab course and Blackboard are integrated. So let's talk about the Gradebook sync process. We're going to go to Gradebook Sync Settings. I'm going to select only overall scores. If you copied from the master, you're going to have to be released in order to make any selection here. And I'm going to push save. Now we're going to go back to Blackboard. And we're going to go back to our Pearson tools. And go down to Manage Pearson, MyLab, and Mastering Grades. We want to go to Add Grade Columns. These are the grade columns we want to add to our Blackboard gradebook. Because I already set up my MyMathLab gradebook sync to show the overall score, that's the only item I see here. If you do this in the reverse order, you're going to have a whole lot of columns that you're going to have to go back and delete. So do the MyMathLab grade sync overall score first, and then come here and select that as the only thing you want in your Blackboard gradebook. And we push submit. I do want to include this in the Grade Center calculation. I'm going to call it assignment, and we need to remember that category because when we set up our weighted total column. Submit. Now, let's go to our Blackboard gradebook and get the weights set up correctly. If you go to Manage Column Organization, you'll see the order in which your columns are and what they all are. And if you have any that you don't want, you can just multi-select here and delete them. And that's the easiest way. I've got mine set up the way I want it. And so what we need to do to make our average work, you can see my lab overall score here, and I have my lab assignments or chapter applications listed. So I'm going to go to my weighted total column. If you don't have one sitting here, you're going to go to create a calculated column and select the weighted column. Here's where I need to select what's going to be in the grade calculation and the weights for each. And so I'm going to select my lab overall score, and that's going to be 90%. And then I'm going to come down here to the other block and look for test, because that's how the lab assignments are entered in. There it is. And you can see down here, they pop up and show you, I say lab assignments, chapter applications. You can see all the chapter applications listed here. They're entered as tests, so I can select them by category. And we pull them over here, and I'm going to tell it that those tests are 10%. And that's it. I do want this as a running total so students can see their current grade, and I don't want it in the gradebook calculation, and we push submit. If you have high school students, then you must have an ISD total column. I don't want students who are not ISD students to be confused. And so what I do is I basically recreate the weighted column we just made, but call it ISD total and hide it. And so then the grade pools are done and behind the scenes and nobody knows any different. So remember, this has to be called ISD total. And I'm going to do what we just did and select 90% for the MyMathLab and 10% for those tests. Except I want this one to not show to the students. I don't want anybody to be confused. And by the way, the second, the weighted total that we have, we can rename that and call it current grade if you'd like. That's up to you. But that's it. We're set. We're ready to go. We don't have to do any interim grades. We don't have to do anything on the final grades except put A, B, C, D. The one thing to do, the only thing you have to remember to do is for the grade reporting, you have to go manage incompletes in MyMathLab. So if there are assignments they hadn't done, there will be zeros there. Same thing on the final grades. Make sure that you regularly manage your incompletes in MyMathLab so that students' their grades are current. Let me know if you have any questions. I hope this was helpful.